Okay, all right, now I'm not. There's Jim. Okay. Here's Jim. Okay, so we've done the roll call, and I would also like to introduce Roland Middleton from Public Works. He will be doing a presentation this morning on the new ferry. All right, so let's please do a flag salute. So if we could all stand. And go for it.
Go for it. I pledge the allegiance.
To the republic which stands
Under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And as is tradition, we're going to take a moment of silence. So if everyone could be quiet for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. Before we go on to the minutes and to Roland's report, I wanted to just update everyone on a couple of things. I want to remind you that LIFAC is an advisory committee to Whatcom County Council. We don't make decisions, but rather work with, not for, both Public Works Council, Whatcom County residents, and the Islanders to make recommendations regarding all things related to the ferry in an advisory capacity. We're not asked to provide legal, accounting, or other expertise, as Council and Public Works already have plenty of that. With all the information and misinformation out there, particularly on Nextdoor, I want to remind everybody that you are absolutely entitled to your own opinion, but there are certain facts that don't change. So the current facts that we have is that the Whatcom County Council is scheduled to vote on a proposed amendment to the ordinance on June 20th, which is next Tuesday. This was originally proposed in April, and there was public comment taken on that. I don't know if there will be additional public comment, but I do know that they are planning to vote on that amendment.
And you see this?
In that amendment, there are some minor working edits to it. There is a provision for the Islanders to trade in their punch cards for full values when the fares go up. There's a schedule for rate increases if needed in the future, so that it be done in a thoughtful manner, meaning annually. There's a clarification of capital versus operating expenses. There's a provision to allow the ferry to accept ARPA funds into the fare box, if available, and any other funds for that matter. And there's a commitment to needs-based fares as staying as low as possible.
Sent to you.
And it clarifies the interpretation of the motor vehicle fare tax per the Monson memo. Council is also set to vote on a resolution that was submitted by Public Works yesterday. And the resolution is to recapture the motor vehicle fare tax funds going back to 2007. The current ordinance change that is in there will start it from January 1st. If we don't have this particular resolution, there's no provision to go backwards. The Randy at Public Works has been working with this and was advised by both legal and the finance director of the county that this would be the safest way to ensure that those monies were gotten back from 2007 and that it enshrines it going forward that the motor vehicle fuel tax is used in the fare box. We don't know if this will pass. If it does not pass, it does provide a potential problem for us, because when before the Monson memo was found, thank you, Diane Harper, very much. We were about $500,000 in the hole. When Randy determined that the effect that memo had, it put us in $1 million surplus. If we're not able to calculate that money from 2022 backwards to 2007, we're back in the hole. So I'm hopeful it'll pass. Liz Cosa felt confident that it would. The county executive supports it.
And Mary, she just submitted that yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
It was just submitted yesterday. So there's a group of islanders who have made a separate proposal to changes. There are several minor changes to wording. The recommendation is to go back to the previous wording on the difference between capital and operating expense, to use the words regular and routine maintenance, which the current one took out. However, this is the same language that was used to expense the dolphins in the first place. And that has been reviewed multiple times by multiple accountants, by GAAP principals and the state, and it was deemed an operating expense. So in any event, that is probably going to happen. The other information that seems to be out there that is incorrect is that there's a $2 million surplus. There is not a $2 million surplus. Currently, there is $1 million surplus, and the other $1 million that is the surplus is in the road fund. And it was because of excess contributions to the road fund that is essentially used as a float, and it could be peeled back by the county at any time. So it is not necessarily ours to use. The county leaves it there in case there are additional expenses they need to cover, but it always gets put back. And at some point, because the surplus has gotten so large, they are talking about removing it. Currently, we are, Public Works is planning to postpone a fare increase until January of 2024. Unless the particular resolution to memorialize the Monson memo doesn't pass, we will likely have to do one sooner. Because the fact of the matter is, we are expending $46,000 more per month than we are taking in revenue. So that's where that $1 million is going to go fairly quickly. Public Works is considering right now a 10 to 15% increase this year. There's been a lot of talk that it's 3 years and it's 10% a year, all this other kind of stuff. None of that will be put into a increase this year. They'll be this year only. And then as ridership is reevaluated each year, it will get looked at. Currently, ridership is up, which may change that 10 or 15% number downward. And of course, it all depends on how council votes on both of the proposed changes. Rich Hudson is not here this evening. His father is ill and he is with him. He wanted me to let you know that as an islander, he strongly supports the current proposal of ordinance changes that is before the council. He also approves of the resolution to memorialize the motor vehicle fuel tax. The other request that we have put in per the group of islanders working was a request for ARPA funds of $358,000. We had already put a request in for $1 million. We hadn't heard back. And we put in a very specific request, thank you to the islanders, for $358,000, which was the average that was calculated that we probably lost during COVID. Apparently, council seems amenable to considering this. Again, we have to have the ordinance approved in order to be able to take that money. So a lot of moving pieces that are going on. So those are the current updates that I wanted to give all of you before we have Roland's presentation. One other update is that I asked the council members, which none of them could be here this evening, if they needed anything from LIFAC. And the answer was no. They had everything that they needed. I want to remind everybody that this meeting will be conducted with respect for all. Any unprofessional or disrespectful behavior, such as we experienced in April, will not be tolerated. And if the meeting is otherwise disrupted, we will adjourn immediately. I want to remind everyone that all of your opinions are valid and valuable, and let's make sure that we're all heard and we assume positive intent. I think this will help us to have a productive meeting. Okay, let's see. Yes,
So are we still having the speakers at the end of the meeting?
yes, we are.
Rich, could you unmute? You need help with that?
No, I'm just saying. See what it is.
Within Zoom.
Yeah. Could we just pause for just a moment? How many people would like to speak tonight?
Rich, we're going to listen to Roland this evening, and we'll certainly make time for people who are going to speak, but we're not going to change the order of the meeting. Because Roland is here and we haven't heard on the ferry update in a very long time, and we're lucky to have his time, and that's what we're going to do this evening. Okay, so let's move on to the minutes consent. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the May minutes?
Aye.
Okay. Jim? Yes?
Everybody?
Stay.
Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. Okay. So we are it's up to you, Roland. Roland Middleton, Special Programs Manager with Public Works. The last time you were here was October, I believe. Might have even been September.
Could have been.
It's a long time ago. So tell us what's going on.
Oh, a lot has been going on. For those of you who have gone through grant processes or dealt with the government, dealing with MARAD, which is the Maritime Administration, all grants and loans and everything have strings attached. Federal money has steel cables attached, and most of them are invisible, and you don't even know about them. And so when you go one direction, they pull you to another. Our group, which is the Bridge and Hydraulics Division Manager, James Lee, I think most of you have met him or seen him. He's the one in charge of the terminal projects that happen. He has been working nonstop with MARAD, and they've been very, very good. They've been very helpful. They're used to doing grants for things like the Port of Tacoma, all of the retrofitting of Oakland, big things in the East Coast, naval projects and things like that. And then along comes a very short ferry trip back and forth between a rural island and the mainland. And none of this project fits in any of their books at all. So we've been going through step by step. When I was here quite a while ago to kind of raise the flag and say, oh, this is going to be this very disruptive. We thought we had 4 years. Well, we still have 4 years, if not 5. Everything has been pushed back. We've been given an extension because they don't know how to get us over the finishing line. So we haven't even been able to go out for an RFP for the consultant yet, because we have to do it in lockstep with the federal rules, which don't match up with anything that we're trying to accomplish. So we're hoping to have the consultant that will help this whole process September, October of this year. And we want to start immediately to have community meetings to start talking about when the terminals are under construction and the vehicle service will be disrupted. What are all of the things that are of a concern? There's some obvious ones. There's propane in the wintertime. There's mail service, garbage collection, those sorts of things. But as I was watching traffic coming off the island, there was also a pest control and things like, oh yeah, there's lots of things that we need to start addressing. Now we have a few years to do it. And as I said before, we have a few years, and then I'll say it again, we only have a few years to make sure that your basic needs are met. It is going to be absolutely inconvenient, without a doubt. We are looking at landing craft, and we're looking at barge sites that we might be able to employ. We'll be looking at all of those things. One thing that Mr. Fry and I talked about was eelgrass, and it's actually, they sent me the maps. It's the eelgrass is on the Lummi Island side, not Gooseberry. That's the real problem. So the eelgrass is all around the terminal at the Lummi Island side. There is eelgrass all around on Gooseberry, but we have some ability to move around. That doesn't really matter because it's the Lummi Island side is the one that's going to be shut down for so long. We are sharpening pencils, putting oil on the slide rule, and trying to make sure that the absolute minimum amount of time is utilized to get the construction done. We'll be doing all kinds of incentives, which would be working at night in areas that you can work and things you can do. If you watched when the new breakwater was being put in, you saw people with binoculars. Those are marine mammal spotters. They have to be able to see, and since they cannot see at night, there's not certain types of in-water work done at night. So we are going to do things out of step a bit, and there may be some work up on land, getting it all built, and then as soon as daylight comes out and the environmental folks says go ahead and go, we'll move that in. So instead of constructing it right over the water as you normally would do, trying to do everything that we can to get it done as quickly as possible. Having said that, I am one of the people that are going through the Mount Baker Highway detour. So it takes me extra time to get to work in the morning. And we have people coming unglued because they're taking an extra 3.5 minutes to get to work. It's terrible. I've met with a few of those people, and I suggested that perhaps they talk to any of you about taking a little extra time getting to work, like 4 months. That's what we're talking about, 4 or 5 months. And it can only happen during the fall and winter time. And environmentally, that's the fish window. And the fish window is essentially the window that allows construction to happen in the marine environment. So,
So Roland, can you
Yeah.
confirm for me, I'm not sure I heard correctly, which side is going to be totally taken out, the Lummi side or
Both.
the Gooseberry? So they'll both be out of commission
both be out of commission.
during that whole time.
Yeah, the Gooseberry side is expected to take a little less time
Oh,
than
okay,
Lummi.
okay.
And so it's really the Lummi Island side that is is the biggest issue.
And at this point.
And there's no place to
Put it.
else to go.
And the Gooseberry side is not moving at this point, correct?
That's correct. The Lummi Nation has requested Whatcom County to work along with them to move the terminal about 600 feet, I think it is, to the west. It'll still be north and south. It's not going to go up that into the strait. It's going to be north and south. Same orientation is now. It's just going to be a little bit closer to the island. That will, there's more room there actually for queuing of cars, the availability to potentially, we're working with Lummi Nation who are talking about perhaps doing a small retail and convenience there. So a coffee shop, some restrooms, things like that. They're right next to the terminal entrance. They need the room at the fish processing plant, and going around through the fuel dock is problematic. And so they are looking at the potential. That was studied several years ago before I got involved, but that same study has been resurrected by Lummies, and they're discussing it at the planning commission level. I believe the Lummi Planning Commission level.
But that would happen after we had the new ferry.
Yeah, my original hope and plan was that we would work on that.
At the
And
same
the
time,
new boat
yeah.
would just come to the new terminal when it was all done. There's little to
No chance.
no chance that that will
Okay.
happen, unfortunately.
Okay,
That doesn't mean we've given up hope. It's just it's going to be a little more problematic.
and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's all right.
Interfere.
So the basic plan is to start to have the conversation with you all and start making a very large list of all the things that is very problematic. I don't know how we're going to deal with doctor's appointment. I don't know how we're going to deal with certain things. But we, just because I don't know how to do it, maybe you don't know how to do it, we will continue to work on it until it is resolved. And get those.
Will there be a passenger? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there's a passenger ferry.
Just no
Yeah.
car ferry.
Yeah, but yeah, and so that normal 2-week inconvenience stretched out to the point where it's a little more difficult than just going to a big Costco run beforehand. In fact, the new terminals will have emergency access points. They'll have a passenger dock that will be raised up, but will be available to the crew as well as the fire department and sheriff's department. So we don't have to anymore take the dock, the ramps down. They'll be in place. The dock will be there at any and all times. So in the middle of the night, if they need to lower down to bring an emergency vehicle or emergency passenger ferry there to pick people up, they can. So that's going to be built first before we disrupt any of the vehicle service. That's going to be built first. Those will be put into place. And so that will be from here on out, how during dry dock, you'll be getting off and on. So it will be fully accessible. So wheelchairs will be able to move up and down. Won't have to be juggling anything over the riprap or the other problems that you've experienced over the last 100 years or so. So yes, there will be a passenger ferry. It will be in place, and that will free up all of the area because it's going to be off to the side, and that's what on both sides, on Gooseberry and on the Lummi side. So yes.
The concept of offsetting, has that been considered? Offsetting, so you plant another eel bed somewhere else and then you allow yourself to destroy a current eel bed. That's
Yes.
that's offsetting, like they do it with carbon sequestration.
Yes, that is completely up to the Lummi Nation. They have veto power on that. And so
What
we'll be
about on the
working
Lummi
with them.
Island side?
Yes, no, it's all part of their usual and custom areas, fishing areas. That was a proposal for the Taylor Dock down in the city of Bellingham. And if you wonder why, you stop and look across and there's one area that's built, another area built, and there's a part like, why didn't you just finish it? Because the Lummies vetoed the permit. And so it didn't happen. Mr. Pratt.
So,
Rich, could you unmute, please?
yeah. Um, So the question came up, so I had a couple of conversations with John Hutchings over the last bunch of months. So one item that comes up is that it seems fairly clear that Public Works is going to be involved with some major work along Slater Road and through the Nooksack Basin, the flood basin over the next big bunch of years. And that I'm imagining that's going to require an enormous amount of collaboration between the tribe and the county. And it would seem to me to be in the tribe's best interest to make some trade-offs about things that could affect them and their welfare in the future. So has that topic been broached with the tribe?
Well, let me unmute. I'm sorry, I had to leave you with this.
Oh.
First of all, I will say emphatically that the Lummi Nation speaks for the Lummi Nation. I do not. I'm the tribal liaison from Public Works to the Lummi, Nooksack, and other affiliated tribes. We at the staff level are working very well together on all of these different issues. There's 2 or 3 different areas on Slater that need improvement. There's Marine Drive that needs improvement. And all of you that try to drive to Bellingham when it floods understand all of that. The city of Ferndale. Try this again. The city of Ferndale is wanting to make sure that we get Slater Road improved as well, because you all end up driving through Ferndale. There are ongoing coordination meetings with planning and public works of Lummi Nation, natural resources of Lummi Nation, the tribal employment rights ordinance folks, TARO, the cultural resources with Lummi Nation, all the time. I spend a tremendous amount of time either at their office or on the phone with them working on these things.
Yeah.
Whether they see them as one group effort or not is really up to them. I can tell you as the person from Public Works, we see them all as benefiting the great community that you all call home. And so
do they.
I would hope they would.
Yeah.
And so there are tens, I will say dozens of millions of dollars in projects in this area right now that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Not only the 50+ million for the terminals and the ferry, the reconstruction of Slater and the Slater Road Bridge could be 45, 48 million. Projects that when I started in the county were just completely unheard of, but that was, well, when I started, Diane was still there. So to give you an idea. So yes, those are all kind of together.
Do you have any crystal ball to tell you what the chances are of some kind of collaborative mutual back scratching on this that might affect some of this very negotiation?
My and if you talk to Dr. Hutchings, he'll tell you my favorite quote is from Dorothea Brandt, which is act as if it's impossible to fail. And that's how we got the RAISE grant. for the vote is
Mhm.
this will happen.
Mhm.
It has to happen. There's too many lives at stake for this not to happen. And in the end, the politics get laid aside, and the posturing gets laid aside when you're sitting there looking at the absolute right thing that must happen. And then the fringe element look as foolish as they are, and they tend to fall away. So there are lots of things to debate about. Fares and the new ordinance, how you interpret it and all those things. But having a boat that you can rely on is not one of them.
Yeah.
And following environmental laws is not one of them. We are within their backyards, and working with them is one of those things that when I first started as a tribal liaison, we had a lot of things to kind of get over, and we don't deal with that nearly as much. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Fry, I'm very hopeful. I will be positive even in saying, I think it will work.
Mhm.
I think it will be a benefit to all. And there's enough people within Lummi Nation who are saying things like, maybe they would like a coffee shop and some restrooms while they're waiting to get home. And maybe some artwork. Would you like to buy some artwork? Maybe we'll put a little shop there. And there's enough that discussion now to where with having Coast Salish art at the terminal, this is one of their gateways to their home.
Yeah.
Why not have it look that way?
So one other question.
Rich,
I believe,
could you just lean in and speak into either unmute or speak into Roland's?
I don't think it's.
I have to do it this way.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the people on Zoom are able to
Okay.
hear.
So sometime, I believe it was in October, the month after you told us about possible lawn closures with no car ferry. I had, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that we in LIFAC actually sent a resolution to the county council. I don't know whatever happened to it.
No, we did not.
Okay, so the talk I had with John was, I asked him, okay, is there any reason why all you engineers can't figure out a way to break down my, not direction?
It's not touchscreen. It's a laptop.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure everybody hears you. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why it keeps going on. Thank you. What was I? Okay, the question was, can it be staged in such a way that that over several years, various pieces of this could be done in such a way that, for example, you might be able to do 3 weeks at a time, kind of like maybe more frequent dry docks, but still have not have those possible really long periods where the supply chain is really, really interrupted, whether it's stuff coming in or trash going out or any of the rest of it. We've already, I know there's already at least one household that's moved away because of the fear of that already. So has that been discussed at all?
It has, actually. Just, I'd like to address that. I know it was brought up in the previous meeting, and I went back and asked, and we looked into, it's not just the engineering of it, it's more the accounting. So the terminals are part of the raise grant. And we have to have it expended in a specific amount of time. And we had to get an extension for that on top of it, just to make it now. So that is very problematic. We can stretch it over 2 seasons. But
2 years?
2 years, two different seasons, so it would be 2 different windows. And if that is something that is deemed to be something that the Lummi Island folks said, we'd rather suffer through, 3 months twice, then 5 months once. Let us know. I mean,
Well, isn't that the kind of thing that'll be discussed at these town hall meetings?
yes, it
Yeah,
is.
okay,
Yeah, that's
perfect.
exactly
Okay,
the purpose of that.
yeah. So I think what might be helpful is if you, to the extent that you know at this point, if you could give us a little brief timeline for how this is all going to proceed. I mean, I don't know if you have much detail on that yet. You said the consultants hopefully by September or so,
Yeah.
which then starts the process.
Starts the process, and the public process is right at the beginning, and get it going just as soon as they're
Okay,
available.
so in the fall sometime.
Yeah, we'll be working with the council's advisory committee on
Mhm.
some of that.
Mhm.
We'll probably have a couple of proposals and say, well, here's our thought.
Okay.
We'll do it every 3 months, we'll do it every two weeks, or whatever it is, and then get some feedback from you all,
Mhm.
and then put it out there.
Okay.
I think a really strong work session is necessary. So that's the reason why I'm coming out months ahead of time and not just announcing this in September, is for you all to think about and make little notes. Those things like pest control, that I don't,
Yeah, what else do we need to consider?
what else you need to consider, because I'm not going to think of everything.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you for the information. Excuse me, could we ask you to come up to that? Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
It's just a quick question. Thanks for the information you're providing. I'm just curious, how do you envision the communication occurring?
Well,
On the front end?
what I'm envisioning is like a town hall sort of thing. And we have a great big list. And then organize that list so we break it out to the different people, utilities, what have you. Things that we might be able to stage over here. We working with and I've already talked to one of the propane purveyors. And they said, well, will you let us bring over one of our big tanks and you provide a place for us to lock it up? And then we can leave one of our smaller trucks here, fill it up, go out and do the deliveries and then park it. Our person can walk on back and that's the kind of thing that we need to talk about. We need to talk with UPS and FedEx and the post office. Any other deliveries that you all get, that's the part that and your neighbors know, and that's what we need to start working with the folk. We've already talked to Puget Sound Energy. They'll probably have trucks over here. They've dealt with this kind of thing before in rural areas during forest fires. Apparently, it's a typical thing that they do, and so that's the kind of thing that we'll be looking at doing. And then coming back and saying, here's our idea. And I'm sure there are people who go, oh, no, that's not going to work because you didn't think of this and this and this. Thank you. That's why we brought it back, because now we need to figure out this, and this. So that's the basic plan.
And what do you think timeline for that conversation back and forth?
The first year.
First year. Okay, so a year from fall, we'll be having those conversations continually.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then putting out a plan.
Okay,
This is how we're gonna plan it,
Okay.
do it. So then we're like 3
then we're in 2025.
years, right? And then so that by the time
Mhm.
we get there, everything is in place
Okay,
and we'll address everything we can.
okay, and you said at the beginning that it looks like we're about a year behind already.
Mhm.
So when does that mean we'll get the new boat? Is that the 27 or 28?
I bet the new boat is out floating around somewhere or sitting in Lake Union. So I think the new boat will actually get built faster than we'll
Okay,
get the terminals done.
okay, so the terminals are the slow part. So
Anybody have a son or daughter that works for National Marine Fisheries? Ask around, would you?
Yeah.
Especially during Christmas time when they're feeling happy
Yeah.
and seeing which desk our application is sitting on, because we've got nothing.
Okay,
Nothing. It's average turnaround time from National Marine Fisheries is 4 years.
okay. Okay, so we're 28 at the earliest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that this is not a plug, so this is not a political statement. This is a statement of fact. Congressman Larson, you represent your district congressionally. I talk to his staff on a regular basis, which is a little strange. Including the Washington DC staff will call and just say, hey, what's going on? What's going on? So we do have some help there.
Okay.
Being the ranking member on the transportation committee kind of helps us a little bit. Senator Cantwell, when she was most out here most recently, was also asking. So there are some things that we can apply some pressure. We are not going to lose a dime. We're going to spend every dime. They keep printing it out in the basement. We'll keep spending it. So that's our goal.
Okay, let's do one more question and then we're going to move
I
on.
think
Okay. Oh, Jim, you had a question
Jim.
and then Pam.
Jim, could you please unmute?
We got that?
You have to use the mouse. Or the fingerprint.
Yeah, these aren't.
Okay, I'm gonna make a couple comments here. When Skagit, not Skagit County, when San Juan Island needed a new ferry dock, they built a second one alongside the old one. There was no gap in service. We got to think this out a lot better. Because there is no possible way, in my humble opinion, that we're going to be able to pull this thing off in 4 months or anywhere else, or you're going to be able to hold this place together for that long without a ferry.
Okay,
So the one thing, no, let me speak, please. The one thing that I'm going to say, during the Second World War, they did some magical things. They managed to prefab stuff and have it in days. I don't know why we can't do it now. We've got far better equipment. We've got far better manufacturing. And we should be able to do that. And the second thing is, if we end up stretching the boat out, the time out, we need a different boat. That boat is so substandard as far as hallways and everything else. It shouldn't even be on this run.
okay. So Jim, I definitely appreciate your opinion on these things but right now, and we'll address some of those when we have some of the public meetings, but right now, I think we want to keep it to this particular
I just
topic.
like it to get people get it in their minds.
I get it and I appreciate that. Thank you. Pam, real quickly, and then we're going to move on to public comment.
I just had a question for, Roland.
Whoops.
Are you guys, familiar with the elimination 100-year plan for Gooseberry Point?
It's put out by Western Washington.
Pardon me?
Western Washington, right?
Yeah,
Universities.
and how the sea level rise is going to affect Gooseberry Point. I would hope that fact would be factored in as you develop these new docks, because this winter it was astounding how high the water already is. Much of Gooseberry Point was flooded, and we would only expect that to increase in the next 10 to 15 years. And so if the roadway is not elevated, that is just not going to work. I drove off the ferry at one point this winter where the dock on the Gooseberry side, 1/3 of it was dry, 2/3 of it was under 6 inches of the sound.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how high the water is already. So I'm hoping that you're building that into your plan, that it's the whole system over there will be high enough to actually use.
Yeah, I'm actually one of the people working on not that specific plan, but on the analysis. I'm an engineering geologist and geomorphologist and have been a lone voice for a few decades talking about climate change. And at the last hot season, I was quoted in the Herald as saying when it was 113 degrees for 3 days in a row out of my place, I said, now the people that have their heads buried in the sand can't even breathe because it's so hot. Maybe they'll figure it out. And I apologize for you, those of you who have a difference of opinion, but that is my opinion. It's a professional opinion. And it's also one that I have seen going on now for some time. I was out at Sandy Point and every flood that they dealt with, including the last one. They had 3.5 feet in the fire station. The expected 40 years from now is that event will be occurring at least 4 times a year on a regular cycle. So yes, that's part of the issue. That's even part of the calculation for this side as well, is to make sure that that's addressed.
All right, thanks.
Can I ask super quick?
Very quick.
Very quick, just how many properties does the county own on the island for potential future staging purposes?
I don't know.
You don't know, okay, you know that where they stage the gravel on, do you know if that's owned by?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on,
I do know that
more to come.
there was we had to bring more back over because
Yeah,
all right,
some of it
all right.
went missing.
So if you could give Rich's report.
I am going to
that
read
would
it
be
directly
great.
to you.
Okay,
This is from Rich Hudson. He apologized for not being here. He had a family emergency. Successful dry dock, Welcome Chief. All repairs and maintenance were completed during the performance period. After returning to service, we discovered air leaks on the main engines causing extra exhaust. Tri-County Marine will be out tonight after the last scheduled run to perform warranty work to address it. Given that the passenger-only vessel didn't miss any of its scheduled runs, EMS calls aside, marks 1 full year of service with no unscheduled service outages due to electrical or mechanical failure. And then our streak ended when we lost the hydraulic cylinder on the island side apron. We were able to coordinate the repair during our regular fueling of the Whatcom Chief, which meant we were only out of service for a period of about 1 hour. Congratulations to our bridge crew. That's the fastest swap out of one of those cylinders we've ever had. This summer, when possible, we'll be scheduling an extra deckhand during the busiest part of the day. And the toilets are fixed on the island side, public restrooms, new toilets and sinks, new doors are on order. Back parking lifts are fixed and functioning properly. I don't know what that means, but maybe you all do. Back parking. It also could have modified his text too.
Yeah.
This was a text, so but something is fixed and working properly, something else. That is the report I have from Mr.
all right.
Hudson.
Thank you very much
you.
for doing that. I really appreciate it. Did you have any updates, Mike, on that? No updates there. Okay, let's go right to 3 minutes of public comments. If you want to make a public comment, hopefully you've written your name down there. Maybe Paul, if you could hand me that list of the people that want to speak. You have 3 minutes to speak. We will be timing you. We will cut you off at 3 minutes.
I haven't
Terrific.
seen any signups from
Zoom, okay?
from the Zoom, but we might.
Okay, and you are not allowed to give your 3 minutes to another person. So we will not allow that this evening. Bob, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Been here before. My name is Bob. I serve as the moderator for the Lundy Island Work Group. And this work group has grown since April and now includes 14 people who have expertise in accounting and legal, drafting and law, economics, education, and communication. We put in literally hundreds of hours analyzing how the current system of ferry finances has worked over the last 17 years. Tonight, I'm here as an individual. I'm here as a member of the work group, but I'm also here to give voice to islanders who have signed a petition because they are quite concerned about the proposed changes to the ordinance. The bottom line of the petition is to request LIFAC support in postponing action by the council on the proposed ordinance changes. Now, when this meeting began, we heard news that we were not aware of, and that's some good news. 2 of the recommendations that we made as a work group with the ad hoc task force apparently have been processed forward by Public Works. That is the ARPA funds, 358. We computed that number. We gave it to you. We're glad that that's going forward. Secondly, we insisted, and one of our 3 tenets of changing the ordinance was to make sure that the ordinance covered the back recovery to 2007, which we were told was not going to be necessary, but now apparently it's agreed to, and we like that. We're very thankful that that's happened. But there are still other issues that we and the work group and the community are very concerned about. And we urge you to listen to our request, to postpone action other than those important changes, ARPA and the resolution to recover those motor vehicle fuel tax funds back to 2007, so that we don't have a crisis that we thought we had, then we didn't have. Now we're not. Now we're going to make sure we don't have. 4 days ago, I sent to the from the work group a set of proposed amendments to the Public Works version of the ordinance, asking for the full committee to consider them, and at least to recommend to the council a postponement of the items that have been proposed by Public Works. We don't feel, and we hope that the resolution goes through, but we don't feel there's an urgency to act on that. And in our letter, we highlighted 3 areas that are of particular concern to us. Now there are only 2, thankfully, but they're big ones, and people from behind me are going to be commenting. To conclude, the proposed code is flawed. And at this moment, 576 people from this island and ferry riders have signed this petition. And I will submit this petition here tonight. This is more than half of the population of the island. Is that time up?
Yes.
Okay, more than half the population of the island. Please listen to the community and stick with us to postpone other considerations. Thank you very much. And I'll submit this to you now. Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Diane?
Hi, I'm Diane Harper. I was a member of the 2011 Ferry Task Force. I'm now a member of the Long Island Working Group. And I want to say first, I appreciated you hearing me in December and taking action on my proposal then, and I'm hopeful you will do so again tonight. The law that has governed ferry fares for the past 16 years says that fares are responsible for a portion of, quote, all actual daily running expenses and all actual regular and routine maintenance and administrative expenses. Note that maintenance expenses are qualified. Public Works ordinance proposal changes that to all expenses that are not capital costs will be included in the fare calculation. The net effect of no longer limiting maintenance to only what is regular and routine would be that some unusual and unusually costly maintenance tasks would be included in calculating fares, like the dolphins. I have a graph which I sent to you guys. I'll have a few copies available. It shows that there is this incredible impact in 2022 and 2023 on the regular repairs and maintenance expenses. It actually will result in a fare impact of about $400,000 or about 3 months of a good year of fares. It is important, and simple fairness asks the question, why should unincorporated Whatcom County residents pay more instead of ferry users paying more? The answer is that the scale of the impact is too different for it to be fair. When someone buys a home or takes a job, they consider commuting costs. Increasing the commuting costs substantially by surprisingly large maintenance expenses is a significant burden that ferry users would pay compared to what other county residents pay when the roads they use need very expensive and unusual repairs, culverts, bridges, repairs. The impact is incredibly higher. It's good news that we're going to keep the original 2007 date. And we also want to be clear that in the ordinance, that excess fares collected are to be used to cover fare deficits. This is something that we don't think is extremely clear at the moment. Public Works has some good changes in their proposal, and we've included them when we've suggested amendments. But the change from 16 years of predictable, regular, and routine costs to unpredictably large future costs is too great for me to be able to support the Public Works ordinance. And I would ask that if you do not believe that you will be heard, that you at least go forth to the council and express that opinion.
Thanks.
May I say one more thing?
Quickly.
Okay. I really appreciate what you all do. And I want you to keep in mind that we're only 7% of the Public Works budget. So they need your help. They need Islanders' help in what they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Janice Holmes.
Hi, I'm Janice Holmes, and I want to speak also to the Public Works version of the ordinance. And I think the third change that we recommended is the working group that was not accepted by the LIFAC members on the ad hoc committee is something that has the potential to have a really large impact going forward. And Diane referenced it at the end of what she was saying, and that's how to account for any excess fares over the 55% targeted rate. And right now, it says, the code says that excess would go to operations, but the proposed change is to insert the word solely, so that any excess fare revenue would go solely to future operations. That means that when in a future year there's a deficit, there would be no fare box reserve to cover that deficit. And the end result of that would be that the fares would actually cover more than the 55%, which is what the code requires. So it would be contrary to the code provision. So that is something that I think, one, it's unfair to take excess revenue from people like us, all of us here who paid a fare to get here. And if that is more than what was necessary to meet the 55% goal, to take that and apply it somewhere else. It's not right. And it means we would pay more in the long run, which is contrary to code. I have some other additional information based on some of the information you shared this evening. And there is a $1 million, over a $1 million surplus of fare revenue right now. There's also over a $1 million surplus in the ferry system fund reserve that is part of the county's initial $1.5 million contribution. There's no indication anywhere in the legislative record that this contribution was a loan, or that it should be paid back, or that it should be taken back to the road fund. This was a contribution to create a reserve for exactly the situation when there's unexpected high costs, repairs needed, operations, to be used in that manner to cover essentially a 3 to 6 month period of reserve costs. Another issue is the $46,000 a month deficit. This is through 2023. This is a number from Public Works. Public Works also projects the deficit in 2024 of only $22,000. The $46,000 a month deficit is a direct result of the expense of the dolphins, but they will now have been paid for, so that this deficit will drop in 2024 to anticipated $22,000. Should the ARPA money, the $358,000, come through, that would reduce the 2023 current deficit to $19,000 a month, not $43,000. With a $1 million surplus, you can do the math and see that that's enough surplus to carry through another several years.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Marissa?
Hello, my name is Marissa Rada. I'm originally from the Midwest. Last year, my husband and I decided to move to Lummi to have a safe, quiet, clean, diverse, tight-knit communities to start our family. Lummi is wonderful. There are community events and we were welcomed with open arms. My husband and I are excited because I'm pregnant and we can't think of a better place to raise our family. The fare box and fare increases need to be scrutinized heavily, and so do the proposed ordinance changes. We shouldn't just accept Public Works' version of the ordinance. Only a few words need to be removed from the existing ordinance to allow us to accept ARPA money into the fare box. The rest of Public Works' proposed changes are to make it easier to interpret. If we already know how to interpret the existing ordinance, why do we need to change it? The ordinance changes appear to give Public Works broad latitude to add charges they like to our fare box. I was already questioning the proposed, the presence of the dolphin repair as an operating expense in the fare box. The ordinance changes mean that this questionable accounting decision is accepted into law. What else might Public Works add to our fare box? Shouldn't our county council be in control of how the accounting happens? Residents of the island have to pay to access basic goods and services like medical care, fuel, or clothing. Every fare increase means that people who commute to work every day need to work more hours to cover these trips. I watched the last 2 LIFAC meetings on Zoom, and I've watched county council meetings on the fare increase. At the last LIFAC meeting, I heard LIFAC promise to hold a town hall and to work with the working group. The town hall has yet to happen, and the ordinance changes under consideration are exactly those proposed by by Public Works. What happened? Why are we giving Public Works everything they're asking for? What's in it for us? I hope that the signatures we presented tonight and the support from our islanders in this meeting and other meetings demonstrates to you that the majority of support demonstrates to you the majority support for accepting the working group's changes to the code. Please do not recommend Public Works' code changes as is. I implore you to do what you promised in May, work with the working group, develop a recommendation that satisfies everyone, and have the town hall to answer our questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee?
Hi, my name is Dee Kaglis. I've lived on Lummi since 2004. Since I know math can be a bit of a challenge for some folks, that would be 19 years this month. I want to take a minute and thank LIFAC for all the work. It's a big commitment and I appreciate the time and energy it takes to work on a committee. I really do. So thank you. But I'd also like to read to you the purpose of what LIFAC exists for, which was referenced earlier. This is directly off the website. The committee provides review and recommendations to the Whatcom County Council and Executive on issues that affect ongoing operations and infrastructure of the ferry service to Lummi Island. The committee also provides a forum for those who depend on Lummi Island ferry service to voice their ideas and concerns about ferry service. It goes on from there with 5 bullet points as to how that should work. Some are pretty interesting. But nowhere in the description does it talk about it being in existence to solely support Public Works in their decisions. It's a committee designed to support islanders, not just Public Works. Honestly, it feels to me like some members of the committee have lost sight of this and have put getting along with Public Works and meeting their needs and desires ahead of those of the islanders. I am aware that the ferry runs at a deficit, and I am aware that at some point this will have to be resolved and there will need to be a fare increase. I get it. I think most people get it. What I don't get is the rush to increase fares when we have such a large surplus. What I don't get is the rush to action when there's still so much confusion and misunderstanding. What I don't get is the rush to approve the proposed ordinance amendments when we haven't gotten to the bottom of the issues at hand. And what I don't get is why some members of LIFAC have forgotten their committee's purpose and are in a real hurry to support whatever Public Works says, even when it's been proven that there were tremendous financial errors. I would ask that LIFAC does not support the pending amendments to code 10.34 as it is currently written. And that if they choose to do so, Public Works will not proceed with it. It's not time yet. There's still too much to resolve. Please take the time to continue to work with the working group to resolve the language and to make this work for all of us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Dave. And Mike Skihan.
Mike Skihan, Lummi Island. And thank you for coming out to these things. It's never easy. So over 500 islanders signed a petition that you've been presented with. And that sends a very powerful message, I think, to this committee, that these are very important issues to the island. It's how we get back and forth. And we want to know that there is some sense of balance to how these things are established, not just slam dunk last minute, slam it home. That's not the way you do it. And when you do it that way, you lose us. You lose me. The petition went out, which states, let's get it right this time. We, the undersigned ferry riders, request that Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee recommend to the County Council that pending amendments to Code 1034 be withdrawn by Public Works. Let's get this right. We have time. The budget will support getting it right. I think you want everybody on the same page, not scattered all over, running around, signing petitions, and creating hell. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, anybody else? Leslie?
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me on Zoom? Yes. Okay, good. There was a request that Roland clarify a statement that he made earlier. I believe that this request came from Peter Earl. And specifically, Roland, could you clarify, please, whether it's possible or unlikely that the Gooseberry Terminal upgrade could be merged with a new location? They felt that what you expressed about that wasn't clear.
And he's absolutely right, because it's not clear. And that's part of the problem. So it is possible, but unlikely. Again, it only makes sense to do it once and to get it done. We've been told by the environmental permitting agencies to not bother, not even waste our time to get started on it, because there's no way we can catch up and get the new terminal constructed. Even if we were gifted the entire amount of money from the feds, we cannot get the permits in time. So I would say it's unlikely. And when you're told almost specifically from the Corps of Engineers and National Marine Fisheries that to not even bother, there's just no way. That's starting to lean towards impossible. Again, we've done some pretty impossible things at Whatcom County in the last few years. If you've all been out at Birch Bay, the Birch Bay berm was an absolutely impossible project that I was told for 25 years would never get built. And that project received Project of the Year last year. So it's beautiful out there and it's wonderful. Same with Swift Creek. Same with getting federal dollars for this new boat. I was told by every director and executive all the way back to when Diane was working, when it was Jeff Munson, and the answer was you'll never get a federal dime. And we have 25 million coming from the Fed. So that's a long-winded say of it's impossible, but I'm not stopping at that. I'm going to continue to try to push and get the right thing done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Could I make a statement?
Sure, yes, absolutely. And your name?
Please,
Okay,
and I want to address this to LIFAC. I've been really impressed with the quality of expertise in our community and their willingness to come together and make this these proposals clear and researched and dispassionate. And my disappointment has been in the misinterpretation, it seems to me, in LIFAC's charter that Dee read, that you are an advisory committee. But it seems to me you're advising the community from Public Works. It's not seeming to go back and forth. And I really, really ask you to take to heart your charter to advise Public Works how the people on Lummi Island feel. And with good, solid, reasons behind it. So please don't you give me the feeling that you are, for the most part, the mouthpiece of Public Works. Public Works wouldn't even need a committee. It could just simply send out directives. So if you're not working back and forth, you're the mouthpiece of Public Works, and that's really disappointing to the people on the island. I know you work hard, but you really have to take into consideration your constituents on the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So that's it. Chris isn't here to do his report. So do we have any other committee business? Any new committee business?
Yeah.
What would that be, Jim?
Well. It seems like we've gotten really a lot of nice input from the community. You may not agree with everything everybody does, but it's been excellent. And I think this has to continue. We've got to start looking for other ways, perhaps to fund the ferry, streamline things. And we're going to need a review of the upcoming boat whenever it comes out, because the more I dig into it, the more expensive it is to do the operation. And it'd be really nice, we get this nice boat, but if you can't afford to run it, you're in trouble.
Okay.
I would like to do a on that. That's fairly easy to understand. And if anybody's a CAD drawer, please give me a hand.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other new business?
Not sure if this is new business or not. So are we getting fixed to adjourn?
Yes.
So one thing that seems to be left hanging is that as I recall, the last county council meeting, the item on the county council agenda regarding the ordinance proposal was scheduled to go to the council for their next meeting in 2 weeks, I believe it is.
It's next Tuesday. On the
Next
20th.
Tuesday. And so I'm wondering if LIFAC should send forward some kind of commentary or resolution that basically to continue to hold open the public hearing on the ordinance until perhaps a meeting in July, after we've had a chance to meet again.
Are you making a motion?
I'd be happy to make such a motion.
Second.
The actual wording would be Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee requests Whatcom County Council to continue to hold open a public hearing on Whatcom County Code 1034 beyond its June 20th, 2023 meeting to permit further public consideration.
Okay. Discussion?
I'll second it.
We heard that. Discussion?
Could you read it one more time? No, there you go.
So would the impact of this be, it would delay the vote of the county council by a month, which would then delay the imposition of new, well, the ferry fees aren't going into effect until next year anyways, right?
Correct.
So it doesn't have any impact on the ferry fees
And
other than setting them.
This particular ordinance does not set the fees.
And the other element behind this is that the council chair is going to be away for that meeting and would prefer to be there when it comes before
The council chair of what, Whatcom County Council Chair?
county council.
Or the June meeting or the?
Well, he won't be here for the June meeting. That's peripheral to this. I still think that the idea is worth pursuing, given what we've heard tonight. So,
Okay, and more discussion?
And we're talking about this resolution and.
No.
No, okay.
The current ordinance change resolution that was introduced 2 months ago,
Okay.
that is currently up there, the one that has the changes so that you can trade in your old ferry cards, the changes, the wording, that's the one.
Well, I've considered it since nothing's gonna happen for a while. Let's just do it and then give people some more time to talk about it. I can tell you one thing right now, that from people who call me, and I get, well, probably my phone number with director, I'd even get more calls, but there's a lot of mistrust right now. And I wouldn't try to aggravate it.
And Rich, is there any timeliness there is? Can you explain that a little more, somebody?
The timeliness is that if we don't pass the changes to the ordinance, we cannot accept ARPA funds. And they are going to get rid of those ARPA funds are going to go away. I also have a sense that if we postpone the ordinance any longer, Public Works is going to pull it all together and they're going to go with exactly the way it's written now with no changes whatsoever, which we're going to lose the good pieces of it. So that is my concern about postponing.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Okay.
At one point you said that Public Works was more than happy to make small amendments in the ordinance as time went by if changes would need to be made. So if that was in fact the case, if we even if the ordinance we have stayed the way it is for a while and some small change needed to be made, Public Works would make that.
That is what I thought about a month and a half ago. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think they want to move ahead or not move ahead at all. And I am concerned that we will lose the opportunity to be able to take ARPA funds or anything else. Just my opinion. That may not be fact.
You could say there is a difference of opinion on that.
Yeah, if you don't speak into the podium,
Yeah.
people on Zoom are completely missing what you're saying.
Okay, and the discussion really is with the committee at this point. So do we have other conversation? It's with the committee. This is, we're past public comment period. Sorry. Okay.
I want to clarify something.
Mhm.
It has to do with process, not opinions. Public Works answers to the county executive.
Correct.
Hang on, Mike.
Okay, start over.
Now, Public Works reports to the county executive.
Correct.
county council reports to the county executive. I understand it doesn't,
No, county council is its own separate,
Correct.
well, but the
it's the three-ring circus.
the executive.
Legislative, judicial, executive.
The executive can veto county council.
And they can override
And
it.
they can override.
Yeah,
Yes.
so they don't report their equivalent later. as a
Gotcha, I
government.
used the wrong terminology. And my understanding, if I heard you correctly, is that there's who told you that the county executive is approving this ordinance change?
Liz Cosa did.
So I want to know. Thank you.
So are you proposing a vote? Are we ready to vote?
Well, I'll just say, you know, I think there's some good things in the resolution. It sounds like, you know, getting the ARPA funds, and there's some things people are still concerned about or maybe not happy with. And that's usually the sign of a decent compromise when nobody's happy. And so that's one of the things that I'm considering on this, and the timeliness of that 300,000, which is about 6 months worth of the deficit that we seem to be running right now. So I don't know what type of reserve a lot of people like to run in their own personal accounting. I like to have a fairly high reserve personally, and so I'm concerned that a $1 million reserve when you're looking at the expenses on a year isn't a super large amount. So it seems reasonable enough to preserve that amount.
Okay, Jim, you had a comment?
Well, it seemed to me the county executive said nothing was gonna happen in July. I would.
That's not the case.
The vote's going to take place.
The vote, they're planning to vote next Tuesday on it. Mhm. Are we ready to vote?
May I ask a question that could inform the council, the committee and their deliberation?
Go ahead.
From the podium.
Is it not possible for the council to vote the ARPA funds and the recovery of the motor vehicle fuel tax and postpone the other aspects of the public works proposed amendments to a later time?
I suppose they probably could, yeah.
So if that's possible, I think that should be investigated before we just automatically say it's all or nothing.
All right, so are we ready to vote?
You decide all day goes again, and then I think.
Please, quickly. Quickly, go to the podium and make a comment.
Thank you. I didn't intend to speak now. But we just declared that these things can be separated. The change to the ordinance and the ARPA funds and so forth. And the way it was presented just recently by some members of LIFAC was very reminiscent of a kind of mafia statement. With a gun to your head, you must make this decision now or else.
Okay, are we ready to vote on Rich's proposed motion?
Should I read it again?
Go ahead.
It doesn't do any good if you're not speaking into that.
Actually, I'm on. Still on. LIFAC requests Whatcom County Council to continue to hold open the public hearing on Whatcom County WCC 1034 beyond its June 2023 meeting to permit further public consideration. It's pretty open.
All those in favor? 2, all those opposed? Abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Abstain. Motion does not pass. All right, do I have?
So I would provide a motion then that would and help me wordsmith this, that would allow the deviation from the very advisory to for Whatcom County Council to consider separating out the considerations of the ARPA funds. Help me out, audience. What else is there?
Recovery of motor vehicle fuel tax back to 2007.
And the recovery of the motor vehicle fuel tax back to 2007.
Yes.
So what are you trying to accomplish?
The consideration that we're just going to provide the advisory from the committee to say you could consider doing this, where you break out and accept the ARPA funds and you accept the motor vehicle fuel tax and you hold off on the other considerations. That'd be the voice of the advisory committee. No, we're an advisory committee. We aren't official. We could say that and we can choose to vote that up or down. So that's my point here, is that we can make that voice to them and then they can choose to do with it what they want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to get, well, we need to get that really clearly
Yeah,
stated.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Before we.
So the motion is that the Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee advises the Whatcom County Council to accept the use of ARPA funds for the Lummi Island Ferry and to accept the use.
Public Works recommendation to
The motor vehicle,
motor vehicle fuel tax in 2007.
This is really confusing.
We're
asking them to amend post.
We can advise, and then they can choose to do with it what they want.
okay. So, do we have a second?
I think Rich seconded.
Okay. So the concern I have for that one, Todd, is that the ARPA funds are separate. Okay, so they're going to vote on the ARPA funds separately. But the ability to accept the ARPA funds is in the ordinance.
They
And-
can rewrite the ordinance.
Okay, which would mean postponing the ordinance.
That's up to
Okay.
them. We're advising them. They can choose to do what they want.
Okay, all right. So more discussion on that?
Oh, I think he's got it.
Is that clear as mud, Judy?
No, I'm gonna struggle with that on the minutes, but I know who to
Okay.
talk to. So,
Okay, so more discussion?
I'm so confused. We're asking county council.
To vote on the ARPA funds and to vote on the resolution to accept the take the motor vehicle fuel tax back to 2007, but not vote on the ordinance. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they can write an ordinance that does those two things, but not the other concerns that people had, and gives them time. And remember, we're an advisory body.
Right.
They have a whole legal department
Right.
that's going to look at this and
Right.
decide.
Right.
We're at least voicing the concerns. That's
Okay.
all.
I think it's a good compromise, and I've watched them write many years ago in council meeting. I've watched them write ordinances, right? Between the table and the chair.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay,
so that was everybody but you, right?
no, I vote no.
Yeah, okay,
Mhm.
so I'm just. Okay, so that's 5 yay, nay, because the only.
Right.
I need help with that.
Okay.
Writing that.
And do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Okay, thank you.
We'll see where that goes, but.
It's going nowhere, but that's okay. Right.
This is all turning.
I gotta go pee.